Hello and welcome back to the Champagne Talks. We're your hosts, Selene and
Strawberry.
some of the topics of this episode include terrible governments and unethical practices. As a disclaimer, this episode does mention topics such as death, mistreatment, abuse, sexual assault/SA, gore, suicide, cigarettes, feces, and nudity. This episode is different from what we'd usually make. We cover 2 cases of our choice. We're filming this episode in another setting, so we apologize for any background noise.
On to Celine's case.
The everlasting legacy of the John/Joanne case. Ethics is the underlying backbone of society as we know it. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines ethics as a set of moral principles, theory, or system of moral values. On August 22, 1965, David Raymer was born. When he was 8 months old, his parents took him to get a circumcision procedure, in which would precede an irreversible damage. The Raymer family took David to psychologist and sexologist John Money. That's when he advised that David should undergo sex reassignment surgery to transition as a girl, now named Brenda, instead of his original name, Bruce. Throughout his childhood, then on from the surgery, he felt intense feelings of gender dysphoria. For some instances, acted out against feminine things. For example, when he was 2, he tore off dresses when he was forced to wear them. As a kid, he never felt comfortable with the idea of being a girl. In his words, "There were little things from early on. I began to see how different I felt and was from what I was supposed to be, but I didn't know what it meant. I thought I was a freak or something. I looked at myself and said, I don't like this type of clothing. I don't like the types of toys I was being given. I like hanging around with guys and climbing trees and stuff. And girls don't like any of that stuff." Even after Money finding out how David felt, he told his mother to keep raising him as a girl. Money believed that gender identity is learned through one's upbringing. He as well argued that it was more effective to raise a baby with a defective penis as a girl than a boy. Money would check up on David and his twin brother Brian annually, and during these checkups, he would force the twins to rehearse sexual acts and make them inspect each other's genitals. Sometimes would take photos during these activities. He reported on David's transition as the John/Joanne case. He officially published his study in a book called Sexual Signatures. He portrayed David's case as successful, saying, "The girl already preferred dresses to pants, enjoyed wearing her hair in ribbons and bracelets. Throughout childhood, her stubbornness and abundant physical energy she shares with her twin brother expends freely have made her a tomboyish girl, but nonetheless a girl." Later, David agreed to work with another psychologist named Milton Diamond. He heavily criticized Money's study for the lack of evidence. David and Diamond worked together to debunk the case and to bring light the real truth on the matter. Once talking to Diamond was finally able to reverse the damages, he finally got put on testosterone and received surgeries to remove his breasts and to reconstruct the penis. At 22, he married his wife Jane, but David continued to struggle with his emotional health. The trauma he had faced throughout his life and the effects of the torment that Money put him through had taken a harsh toll on David. Tragically, David committed suicide at age 38.
Alright, so now we move on to the segue, and this segue will be talking or debriefing about the stories. So we're going to state our opinions, thoughts, and how these cases were shown later on and stuff. So you said something about someone talking about how this is transgender forcing on children or something.
Yes, so come to find out, in 2020, Matt Walsh, a conservative, made the comparison to Reimer's case to transgenderism and its awful effects, quote unquote, saying that forcing gender on somebody doesn't change who they really are in that aspect.
I think that's funny because people forcing gender onto somebody is wrong, but it's you're a boy. Boys don't cry. It's forcing gender norms. It's really crazy because it's you're a woman, you should be doing this and that. Oh, you're a man, you're supposed to be working and stuff, and it's like you're forcing gender on things that really shouldn't be gendered.
I don't recall if Money went to jail for everything that happened, but honestly, if he didn't, he definitely should have. I feel so sad towards David's wife and their children, because I don't believe that David actually saw them like grow up, because he committed early on.
Yeah.
Very young too. His life he was just put in the hands of like the worst people since the beginning of it. It's just such a sad thing to see.
And didn't you say his twin brother's condition got better as he grew older?
His twin brother's condition did end up getting better. They were later diagnosed with a condition called phimosis, if I'm not wrong. But since David's brother Brian didn't get the procedure because they realized that, well, we should go because we don't want this to happen to our other child, it healed and didn't cause much of a problem then. It's just really sad to see that David's life could have gone so much better if it wasn't for him being in the wrong hands of people. I'm not going to blame his mother too much because she was just trying to do the best for her child. And when he was interviewed on Oprah, he said he could never be mad at his mom because she was trying to do the right thing. What happened to him wasn't okay, but I understand her point of view.
Right. We're going to start with my case, and this is the disturbing case of Iraqi detainees in Abu Ghraib. I will say right now that I'm so sorry. I only speak 2 languages. I only know English and Spanish, and I'm learning German and Polish. So I don't know a lick of Arabic or Kurdish, and I deeply apologize for my wrong pronunciations. And I'm not trying to be racist or saying these on purpose, like wrong. And I should have done more research beforehand, learning how to say these, and I'm so sorry. But here's my case. A time when the government fucked up was when the US falsely accused Iraq of making weapons of mass destruction, which made them able to invade Iraq. One thing led to another, and in 2003, the US had an established governing body formed. The US started rounding up the citizens of Iraq, some not even committing crimes or doing anything wrong. They set up a prison to place these civilians in Abu Ghraib. Now, Abu Ghraib was used by Saddam Hussein's government to deploy torture and cruel treatment, but it was open to hold those civilians that were rounded up, and it was labeled as a detention site to hold Iraqi residents. The detention was 2 floors, made of concrete, and there was a place outside called the hard site, and that's where a lot of more cruel punishments happen rather than inside. Iraqis were detained, interrogated, and then relentlessly tortured. The guards in the prison were American and would force the prisoners to go nude and cover their heads in a cloth. Now, the cloth was black, but it did have a very pointy top and made me wonder if they were sending some sort of message, because we all know there is a community out there, very harmful community out there, that wears those pointy hats. And if you do search up the case, you might get pictures of people drawing the most popular picture, and then there's also a triple K member that's in the form of the Statue of Liberty. So I'm assuming other people thought that they were sending out the same message. Prisoners were dragged around the prison while being leashed, threatened with dogs, electrocuted, forced to partake in activities nude, and so much more. One detainee said, "They placed a black hood on my head and left me hanging all night." He then stated that the Americans sang "Happy Birthday Al Jazeera," and Al Jazeera is a news outlet.
Okay.
So I don't know really what they were getting onto there, singing "Happy Birthday" to Al Jazeera. If Al Jazeera isn't a real person, it's a news outlet.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their intentions were there, but if you guys know, it would be nice to know as well. So they were singing "Happy Birthday Al Jazeera" to him while he was hanging. Thankfully, he was released after 2 months. Now, while doing research on this case, I saw pictures of what happened in the detention site, and when I tell you, I was horrified. I saw pictures of the detainees on leashes, Iraqis lined up wearing hoods completely naked, a guard posing while smiling with a dead body, and a nude man covered in what seemed to be peanut butter but turned out it was human feces. Now, there were one dead body. I completely forgot his name and I deeply apologize. It was Al Ghraib or something like that. And 2 U.S. guards posed with his dead body, and he seemed very ill and he was very hurt. People said that he went into that prison in perfect condition. He wasn't sick or anything. He was perfectly healthy. And they were put in cages outside, tortured with water that was either extremely hot or extremely cold. I saw another picture of a prisoner who had what looked like cigarette burns on his bottom, and they were fresh, which caused there to be blood. Now, onto another party that took part in this torture, CACI Premier Technology Incorporated. The next paragraph I cited from ccrjustice.org. And here it is. The lawsuit alleges that CACI participated in a conspiracy to commit unlawful conduct including torture and war crimes at Abu Ghraib prison, and it was hired by the U.S. to provide interrogation services with the plaintiffs Suhail al-Shamari, Asad Zumbay, and Salal al-Ajali were all held at the Heart Site, an area of the Abu Ghraib prison where the most severe techniques were used in 2003 to 2004. The case is brought under the Alien Tort Statute, ATS, and filed in the Eastern District of Virginia, where CACI is headquartered. This U.S. law from 1789 allows non-citizens who have been subjected to well-established violations of international law, such as torture and cruel treatment, to bring a case in the U.S. federal court, including against a U.S. corporation, when there is a sufficient connection to the United States. The lawsuit alleges that CACI is liable for conspiracy to commit cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, torture, and war crimes, and for aiding and abetting these acts. The plaintiffs are seeking compensatory and punitive damages. And that ends the cited paragraph. CACI played a huge role in this torture, and thankfully it was very well documented. Army Major Taguba investigated the claims of detainee abused at the detention in Abu Ghraib. He reported that between October and December of 2003, there were countless incidents of deliberate criminal abuse on several Iraqis. The military intelligence and CACI interrogators had the military police set conditions for detainees' interrogations. The military police said that it was made clear to CACI interrogators and soldiers that softening up and special treatment meant serious physical and mental torture. CACI went on to try to cover it up. Luckily, 3 detainees were awarded $42 million, but I feel as though money can't undo the psychological and physical damage they endured at Abu Ghraib. And that was my story that I wrote that took me a while. Alright, so I'm gonna let Selene tell his opinions on this whole situation.
I don't think words can describe how I felt when you first told me about this whole thing. And also the fact that the U.S. denied the claims several times.
CACI literally denied to go to court over this more than 20 times.
And I'm glad that 3 or 4 of the people...
3 of them.
Yeah, 3 of them got compensated. But I do wish more of the people did, because it was a lot of people that they did affect.
Out of all of the people, the detainees that were at Abu Ghraib, only 3 of them getting compensation really says something, because it's either they were scared to go out there and say their story, or they knew that the government was probably going to let them down, or they were dead. But I will say that if you do search up pictures, the Abu Ghraib abuse case, there are so many graphic images and just letting you know, you will see a lot of male prisoners and detainees being tortured, but it was a detention for men, women, and children. So just letting you know now that it wasn't just a place for men, but even women and children were impacted in this whole situation. And yes, words cannot describe how I felt looking at those pictures, because it's like, how do you come up with this stuff? And this man, who many people reported to be perfectly healthy going into this detention, dying and looking very sickly afterwards, and you decide to take pictures posing and grinning while next to his dead body that you covered, like, they like wrapped them in like some like clear wrap. It looked like saran wrap. Yeah. And then they had him lying in a black bag, and for them to look happy and posing as if nothing happened. And I also saw a picture of a guard like having like a syringe or something like next to one of the detainees, and that makes me think, you know, when I searched this up, there was nothing said about drugging, but like clearly something was happening in that picture. And there was another picture of one of the guards that took a picture with the dead body. He was also seen in one of these like piles of like 4 or 5 detainees, and they had cloths on their head, and they were like chained. Their arms were like shackled or whatever, and the guard like had his like arm, you know, and had one of the detainees in a chokehold while having one of his fists up like close to his head. It's either they did that pose to make it seem like he was beating on them, even though like knowing what happened in there, they probably did beat them up, and even worse. But just seeing that, you know, like the guards making it seem like it was all shits and giggles was not it.
Also, to add, I remember I saw one of the photos, and it had a guy that had someone, I'm assuming someone wrote it on him, because I don't think you can even reach back there,
no,
that
right.
said rapist on it.
Right.
I would love to know the actual context to that. Knowing that they put innocent people in there, I have a feeling the guy wasn't actually a rapist.
It was either that, or like because not all of them were innocent.
Of course.
Some people were in there because they did something bad, but a lot of innocent people went in there. One of the people that were in there, he was a principal at like either elementary or middle school. And what did he do? You know, he had a life. These people had lives, had people to look after, had people caring for them. Just for all of that to get taken and for you to be abused physically and psychologically is not cool.
No.
And also, I would really hope that those words were written in a marker and not engraved into their skin. So since we're done talking about these cases, we ended up being very under time, and right now we're at 22 minutes, and by 22 minutes we would probably be in Selene's segue right now.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about other cases that were very interesting to us, or that left us pure like shocked or whatever. And I'm gonna let you go first because I just told my story.
So Strawberry was telling me about the whole thing that Squid Game is inspired by an actual event about Brother's Home. I didn't even know how to feel in that moment. You kept telling me like different things that happened, and my jaw kept dropping lower and lower.
I was going to originally write about this case, but I felt like now knowing how under time we were, I probably could have written about this case, especially from how much stuff like I could have written and shit. We're gonna cover it now, and we hope you like it. But I was watching Rotten Mango, the Rotten Mango podcast. We love Rotten Mango up in here. Stephanie, you're amazing. Acting as if she's gonna see this.
We love you, girl.
We love you, queen. But I was watching the Rotten Mango videos, 3 parts, about this story, and it was really fascinating to me because the gravity of the whole situation, knowing that all of this was government funded and people thought that it was a charity for doing good and stuff, but knowing what went on inside of those walls, behind those barbed wires, inside of those platoons, it was heartbreaking and so sad because one of the contestants' dad ended up being taken in there, and he's still in the mental hospital to this day, even after like it taking place in like the 80s and 90s. Still being there to this day is actually so sad, and I really hope that everybody who was there, who is still alive and even in the afterlife, I really hope that they find peace, because being in a situation like that, it's actually bone chilling. Hearing it, oh my god, me being the sympathizer I am, you know, I really don't know how to put it in words on how like I felt, but imagine hearing it and feeling, you know, so like shocked and stuff, but imagine being there, living through that in that situation for years, and knowing that if you escape, but if you get caught, they could kill you from beating you up in this situation. And I really do recommend listening to the podcast, the Rotten Mango podcast, 3 parts of this Brothers Home case, because I can't go in depth because some of the stuff I forgot, but I'm sure I will remember as we're talking about this. But she goes into way more detail, shows you some pictures of what the situation was like and the drawings that the people made, and like they made replicas, like smaller replicas.
Yeah.
You know, like the one that they made in Big City Greens with the replica of the city. They made like a replica, and it was bone chilling.
I remember you said this earlier, but I'd like to repeat that. There should be like a documentary about this, speaking about the actual experience of Brothers Home.
Right.
And not just like that Squid Game was inspired off it. And I remember you told me that when the creators of Squid Game brought it up, in Korea they didn't want to actually release it or make it because it was heavily inspired off of Brothers Home.
Right, and it was like the Korean government didn't want light to be like shined on what happened, and it's really sad because knowing how popular Squid Game is now, like, and people not like knowing like the truth, people just think, oh my god, Squid Game, you know, and you know, they make it like a joke and stuff. Knowing the inspiration behind that game, that Squid Games, it's like you just can't watch it without thinking about how many people actually died, how many people were actually beaten and tortured for doing just the most minimalistic things. You can't even talk to somebody else most of the time. When you shower, you're washing your body with coarse salt, so it leaves your skin raw and stuff, and on really hot days you feel like so exposed because of the sun, and after rubbing your skin with the coarse salt, and then in like the winters it was so bad, especially because they're out in like the woods, I think in like a mountain or something, it's freezing, and they're bleeding because their lips are so dry and their skin feels so tight. A lot of people had skin diseases in there and lice down there specifically, and I just can't imagine how that's hell. People call it Korea's concentration camp.
It basically is.
It like that's what people call it. Like it basically is a concentration camp, because you're being brought there because the government doesn't want like vagrants, and I hate that word because like it's so bad. Like they're making like people who seem even like slightly like unkept, you know, people whose like beard doesn't look like, you know, proper stuff, it looks like a little patchy or whatever. The police are walking up to you, taking you and bringing you to Brothers Home because you look slightly scruffed. Basically, you're in the subway, you fall asleep on the bench because you're waiting for the train or whatever. They're taking they're taking anybody who acts or seems homeless or scruffed, and they're taking you to Brothers Home without hesitation. You go to like the police or whatever, you're saying like, you know, hey, can I just stay here? I don't really have a home. They're like, okay, yeah, sure, come with me. And they take you to that torture chamber. 30 feet walls. You can't climb. You can't call for help. If you speak or you say something that they don't like, you might die because they're beating you so hard. Barbed wires. They put glass shards on the walls so that if you climb, the shards will go in your hand.
Dude.
It's actually so sad. And then one of the people in there, he was able to escape. He ran, and then he climbed barbed wires, and he ran so much that he didn't realize he ended up in a military base. And so someone in the military is like pointing a gun to the person who escaped, and it's like, who are you? What are you doing here? Don't move. And he breaks down in tears, and he's like, please, you can't take me back. I can't go back. And he's crying and begging. And the military, they drag him. They put him in a van or something, and they drive him. And thankfully, they take him to like a street away. Like they're like they just dropped him off at like the side of the street, handed him like bread or something, and said, go, just go. And sadly, he was like sleeping in like the subway station or whatever. The police took him, and they took him back. He was only out of there for a couple months.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine that the whiplash that he was getting from escaping and like remembering everything that went down just for him to finally go back after thinking he's free. Oh, and don't even get me started with the church that they had there. So they had a church in there. Listen, the guy, Mr. Park, the guy who organized all of this, he couldn't give a shit. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in Jesus. He just said, hey, if there's not religious stuff happening here, people are not going to want to donate. They're not going to want to give us money. So we're going to build a church. We're going to have people go there, and we're going to make it seem like there's some religious shit going on here. Mm-hmm. And the pastor, imagine 4,000 people sitting arm to arm, like really tight in the heat. People said it felt like their skin was going to like fuse together because of how close they were sitting. And then in the winter, it's not that bad, like you're getting like some warmth off of other people, but being crammed is not fun.
No.
And so the pastor would stand there, he's doing his thing. And then people would be carrying these like red sacks on their back, and it would say like, I'm a sinner on it. And then the pastor would say, this is what happens to sinners, and he would put on boxing gloves and beat these people to death. It's crazy because it's like, I couldn't give a shit about Jesus or whatever, like I don't believe, but making that happen in a church, you're killing people who sinned, quote unquote. Underneath that church, there were like rows and rows of warm, better clothes than they were wearing, than those blue tracksuits. And they were warm, they were comfortable, they were, soft and shit. But they couldn't wear them because they were like donations, and they were going to sell those clothes. So the people inside of Brother's home couldn't wear them, even though there was so many better clothes, like shoes, scarves, hats, something nice to wear, something clean, but they had to wear those 2 tracksuits that barely got washed. It's disgusting. And it's actually crazy because when people showed up to give their like donations or whatever, they would make the kids put on these like nice clothes that were underneath the church. They would make them do plays for the people, seem happy and stuff. And as soon as those people left, the people who were bringing in like those containers of clothes and money, as soon as those people left, those clothes would be taken right back. Those kids were forced to put on a play, forced to look happy. And if someone made a mistake, they would get beaten. And not even to mention the games that they would play there. I mean, yes, they were like games that you would play in your childhood, but if you messed up, you could die. Because they had these like thick wooden like bats or whatever. And I don't even think it was like a bat. It was like a baton or something, and they would beat you with it. And so, you know, like how like people like make bridges or something with like their own bodies, you know, how it's fun. You would have like hundreds of people, you know, they say make the Han River, like the Han River Bridge. And you know, it's easy to do with a couple people, but with these like many, like this hundreds of people doing it and making it perfect, being in that position for half an hour or even hours, and having the guards walk on you to make sure that it's stable, and even if one of you messes up, all of you are getting beaten. One person out of the 100, you know, shakes and the guard falls, all of you guys beaten, some of you dying. I just can't imagine the stakes being that high. I would go more into depth about this case because it's so bone-chilling, but we're at the 35 mark, and Selene has a really interesting case to tell you, and I'm gonna let them talk. So here you go.
Back last year, or the year prior, when I had U.S. History 2, I remember I learned about this when we were still learning about World War II, that they had Japanese internment camps, and anyone that was Japanese or Japanese American would be taken to these internment camps. And I think they had similar treatment to like the people that you were saying, like beaten, like mistreated, and a lot of them weren't properly compensated, I'm pretty sure, afterwards. Very racially motivated, because that's the point. Very degrading the way that they used to treat these people. I feel like all the events that happened in World War II could just be made into a movie, because a lot of shit went down. But I remember those internment camps so vividly. I remember I had to make a presentation like summarizing World War II basically, and I remember having to research these internment camps and just seeing some shit I know I just didn't want to see. Just like, whoa, would not have expected that to happen.
Not to mention like the shit that was going on in Japan while all of this was happening, like especially with like the women that were there for like the soldiers like pleasure or whatever. It like them getting like sexually assaulted, raped, impregnated, and probably forced to lose the baby. And the same thing happened at Brother's home. If like a girl or like a woman like vomited, they would take them to the basement, presumably to terminate the pregnancy, if they were pregnant or if they weren't just sick. But I don't know if they could throw up. If they had nothing in their system, they were malnourished.
I feel like history, it is just repeating itself, especially now in these days, in 2025, how the Orange Man, how he's taking over, how his whole presidency is basically turning into a dictatorship, and how we're going into an oligarchy. This is all repeating again, because we have the camps in Salvador, which I find deeply disturbing, and also for the fact that, like, Salvador is not really a known country. I feel like if you were to tell someone, like, I'm from Salvador, like, if I were to say that, they'd say, oh, what's that? Where's that? Because it's not talked about, it's not known. But I'm so sad that its coverage now is only because of the prisons and their mistreatment on the people that go. They're so, like, quote-unquote criminals, when half of them or most of them aren't even criminals. They were just regular people. I also heard that on the news in New York, they took people in and made them sleep into, like, not criminals. I would like to remind you this. Not criminals, mostly innocent people, making them sleep on the floor of a New York plaza. I don't remember which one, but I know they said it. I heard this all on the news. And there was actual footage from somebody saying, like, we're here sleeping on the floors of this plaza. We don't know what's gonna happen next. Like, with, like, fear in their voice. And that's, like, not only is that horrifying, it's like, what if you never get to see your family again? What if you never get to see, like,
anybody?
Yeah. Like, what if you end up dead in those camps? And that reminds me that in Trump's first presidency, he had, like, when he built the border, and had people living in, like, those camps, did not treat them well. Well, a lot of them were injured or, like, very mistreated. might have died of starvation, might have died of other things as well. They were like sleeping on the floor, and they were separated from their families. That's just so cruel. And I think he might have said eventually that he was gonna like unite some of the families. Half of them, I'm pretty sure, weren't united. They weren't back with their families, and honestly, I don't know where those people are now.
But I hope they're doing better.
I hope they're doing okay, or at least,
have a new life, doing better out in the world. Found peace.
Yeah. And I remember that Univision, which is a Hispanic broadcasting channel, news broadcasting channel, will tell the truth about Trump and all the horrific things he would be doing to this country, and in his first presidency. I remember I was around 8, we were around 8, 9, somewhere along the lines of that, I think,
yeah,
when he first went into office. And I remember I'd watch the news every day with my parents, being petrified because what's going to happen next. Me, as an 8-year-old, I feel like I shouldn't have been worried about that, but I was just scared.
As children, like, even as teenagers, you and me, we should not be worrying about, like, what, like, the negative things that could happen in our future, because I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to afford a home.
I'm scared we're not going to have a future at this rate.
I'm scared that, like, ICE is going to just come up and, like, be like, we're taking you, because you look tan. Yeah. Just for slightly looking, like, different. They're just like, hey, do you belong here?
Sometimes I'm scared to even walk out on the street, because I remember ICE was near where we are not even that long ago, and I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like, I remember one of my friends posted it on their story that ICE was near where we are, and I was just like, I knew this was gonna happen, but I was not expecting it to be as quick. I thought they were mainly just gonna go for bigger cities and stuff. No.
Especially, like, I think it's crazy that, like, I'm scared because this state is known for good things.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly known for being pretty free and stuff, doing whatever the hell you want, you know. But it feels like at some point all of that is going to be taken away because of whatever Trump is doing. It's nice not living in a state like Florida. It's nice not living in the South or anything, like where it's like conservative Oklahoma. But I'm scared that, our state is going to end up like one of those states one day because Trump is so strict and so ruthless about everything that's going on and everything. He's so demanding and putting down, like, he's making sure all this shit happens.
I feel like as well that people are losing empathy and just sense of human emotion, actually feeling like bad for somebody and whatever. It was the day after Trump won, and a lot of people figured he was gonna win either way.
I mean, yeah, guys, because Kamala's laugh was weird,
and she's a woman.
Oh my god, guys, she's gonna be so emotional in office.
Have we seen Trump?
Bro, he's gonna get us in a war.
And people were saying that about Kamala. She's gonna get us in a war. Well, she would have done a better job than Trump.
What if she gets her period? She's in her 60s.
She's probably in menopause right now.
Yo, menopause knows her better than you. Why are you acting like you know her so well?
I know. Like, y'all don't know, some of y'all don't know Trump. Most of y'all. The people that dick ride Trump don't know him, but still defend him till the day, like, they freaking die.
He literally would, no hesitation, because literally everybody could probably piece that together. He would fuck his daughter if they weren't related.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm scared that, like, if nobody was around and if it was just them two, I'm scared of what would happen to that girl.
Yeah.
And I know she probably, like, supports her dad and everything he believes, but still, I'm scared for her. Yeah. Like, low-key, like, a father shouldn't say that, his daughter has that ass. He shouldn't say that she's so beautiful. If she wasn't my daughter, I'd date her. Do you know how scary that is?
That is petrifying. The day after Trump won, I remember I was walking to class. There was this kid behind me that said, I'm I'm so happy that Trump won. Finally, he can get those stupid immigrants out of here.
Boy.
I think it was a white boy that said it. I think I remember just telling my friend, like, did we hear the same thing? Because I was walking with my friend, and she was just like, yeah, you heard it. And I remember also, this is like another time, we were walking to class, and we were walking to class, and there was these two white kids behind me, pale, snow white, and they said the N-word with hard R's, really loudly, and I'm pretty sure right behind them there were like either mixed or like black people or whatever, like, behind them, and they were saying this like loud and proudly, and I was just like,
what the hell?
I've lost sense of hope for everything in humanity. I've lost hope in humanity years ago, bro.
No, literally. It's actually crazy.
Like, no way you're roaming out in the streets. You're roaming out in these streets saying the N-word proudly with your white friends.
Before anyone even says it, yes, we know some Hispanic people think that they have the pass because they're, like, tan or whatever, or, oh my god, I have a black friend, though, and they let me say it.
That's not a valid excuse.
That's not an excuse. Okay, listen, I believe that nobody should be using the N-word, not even black people. Like, I feel like, because why are you calling each other the N-word when back then, if you were called the N-word, it was completely different? Why are we normalizing that? And yes, I know people say the F slur, and people say, like, the D slur, and they say the T slur, and yes, that's bad, but, like, even sometimes, like, I feel bad saying the F slur, because it's like, you know, like, we're still oppressed.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's actually sad when white men think that they have an excuse to be, you know, like, what was it called? Like a minority. What is wrong with you to make you think that you have the right to say that you are a minority when you are white, male? Nothing is mentally or physically wrong with you. You're perfectly fine. It's just actually sad how people, like, you want to be oppressed so bad.
You're not oppressed, you're privileged.
Exactly.
That's it. I remember after Trump won, I think it was the same day that I heard that comment from a Trumpy, right? The same day, me and my friend were talking, we were in art class, and he was telling me, like, how, like, I think it was, like, the second day after Trump won, because he wasn't there the day after. He didn't show up, but I remember...
I'd also take a day off if I heard that news.
Yeah, because he was going for Kamala, and I was just like, yeah, as you should, obviously.
Right.
But I had a feeling she wasn't going to win, you know?
No, guys, it's because she had a weird laugh.
I remember we were talking about how Trump won and what are we going to do? Because he's scared for the fact that his father is an immigrant. I'm scared because my mother's an immigrant, and I'd say, like, lower middle class. Barely touching middle class at this point. Like, I would not consider my family rich, by all means, except for Moneybags. If you watch the second episode, you'll know who we're talking about.
No, literally, man, fuck you, Moneybags.
Yeah, but... And I remember he was talking about it, and one of my other friends at the time, don't talk to him anymore, sitting across from us, he said, I'm also really worried about Trump winning. We both took a pause and looked straight at him. Because, what do you mean you're worried? I understand, because he's gay and stuff. Right. But that's all. That's it. White man that's not physically disabled or mentally disabled.
Right.
Yeah. And you're going out of your way and saying that you're scared. What are you scared about?
Right.
It's in your favor. Just, like, I don't understand why you had the nerve to say, like, oh, I'm scared too.
I understand, like, if you're scared for, like, your friends or whatever, right?
But I think he was worried about himself in that moment. And then I remember Pastel saying, how come? Because you have everything at your favor. except for the fact that you're gay, and that's all. Pan, I think. He was pan. Or bi. I don't know. Don't remember. Don't care. It doesn't
Cock
really...
is cock.
It don't really matter. Speaking for yourself, saying that, oh, I'm so worried, when, like, all you have to do is kind of hide yourself. People can't hide like that, you know? People can't change the way that they look. People can't change the way they were raised. People can't change, like, their financial status or, you know.
They can't do that overnight.
They can't do that.
And you can't just change the color of your skin.
Obviously.
Unless if you tan, but
like, you can't do it the other way around.
Right.
That's the thing.
And before any of y'all say, but Michael Jackson did it, I want you to take one good look at yourself in the mirror and wonder what the hell went wrong and why your parents raised you to be such a dumbass.
Yeah.
He had a skin condition. Get that through your head.
I remember it just irked me a lot.
Yeah, I would, honestly, if I was in your position, I would probably be like, is this bitch for real?
That's exactly how it was. Like, I had to take a double take. Like, me and Pastels looked at each other like, is this bitch serious?
Right?
What do you mean? You're not really oppressed.
Right?
You're in, like, you'll be fine. Your family will be fine. You'll be fine. You come from a lineage of white people. You'll be fine.
Another thing is, I would just like to say that my friend, I don't remember if I have a nickname for that, or a code name. I do. Okay. So my friend, who we're gonna call Kibby. So Kibby's parents are immigrants. You know, their parents are from Europe and stuff. And Kibby is not a problem. We love Kibby. Kibby is mentally disabled because ADHD and autism are disabilities. Physically, no, but they're white.
Mm-hmm.
But their parents are immigrants. And what irks me is their brother's beliefs, because I don't know fully what his beliefs are, but my friend said that his brother's beliefs are like not it, and I don't know what his political views are, but I need to know what his political views are, because I know if I knew, I'd be talking so much shit. But I'm assuming he doesn't have anything against POC because he has a friend named Yusuf. I'm literally my friend's best friend, and I'm the only friend that my friend brings to their house, and I'm POC.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's very obvious that I'm very homosexual, but he's homophobic and transphobic, but he still makes jokes about liking femboys and how his best friends are his boyfriends. Me and my friend look at each other and we're like, are you gonna go see your boyfriend? And he's like, my boyfriends? Yes. And I'm just like, oh, your boyfriends? Femboys?
Plural?
What are you on about, bro? And then he's homophobic and he's transphobic. Like, what are you on about? What are you on about? You know, if he has something against immigrants, I want him to take one good look at his parents and tell them to go back to their country, because his parents are immigrants.
Yeah.
If they didn't move here, you would be out there.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fucky? What is, like, I just really don't get it. I really don't. Alright, but yeah. So, unfortunately, this episode has come to an end, but you can find us on Instagram at The Champagne Talks and on Twitter at Champagne Talks, but instead of an E, it's a 3. And we know this video was different from our usual style. Obviously, we said that in the beginning. But if you liked how this turned out, and if you're interested to see if we could do some sort of, like, you know, case covering and stuff like that, let us know, and we'll see what we can do about that. Thank you guys. Have such a great day, night, evening, or wherever you are.